I was surprised to end up at Harvard Business School. I went searching for different skills, like how do I up-level myself to go make an impact in this industry? That was a moment where I realized I was in the wrong system.
So you decide, you obviously end your first call, that you're going to start a business.
Yeah, so Stell is an engineering documentation tool for hardware engineers. We went full hard mode with the business, and I am so glad we made the bet that we did. With the AI boom, we're seeing the companies that are going 0 to 100 million, they're in developer tools for software engineering. And my hot take is developer tools for hardware engineering is just as big of a market.
Yeah.
And that's what Stell's taking over.
Mallory, thank you so much for joining me in the studio here in LA. I wanted to use this time to, one, not only learn more about Stell Engineering, your company started back in 2022, but also about you, the trajectory of the business, like it's changed from when you started, where you are now, what you're excited about, all the AI hype. But give us the scoop. So you met your co-founder, Anne, back at HBS, but where did this idea come from? Like, what were you up to where you were? And tell us more about what Stell does.
For sure. So I'll start with where the idea came from, because that'll inform the rest of the story of the business. So I grew up in Alabama. I was surprised to end up at Harvard Business School. I studied aerospace engineering, and I had a 5-year career working in factories across the US. So I built commercial aircraft parts at Airbus, and then I worked in missile defense at Raytheon. And this was on the factory floor, embedded with customers. And I tell people the shocking thing, I loved math and science in undergrad, and I became an engineer, and I was a paperwork engineer. And this was what was so shocking to me, was everything was chasing down the 46th page of the PDF so we could deliver something to a customer. And, my skills in math seemed to be falling by the wayside, like not as important to getting these things delivered. And we were working on this really critical mission, like missile defense systems, and our deliveries were mostly late. Like it was just really, really hard to build these systems in a compliant way where we knew they would work and everything was picture perfect and delivered, on paperwork and physically correct. And so I went searching for different skills, like how do I up-level myself to go make an impact in this industry? Because I didn't think just gunning for the next engineering promotion. I was a senior engineer at that time at Raytheon. Like I wanted more. Like I was super type A. I showed up every day wanting to make the program on time. And I had a colleague, she said to me, Mallory, you're doing the most and you need to do the least. Because you can't be rewarded in the system for doing the most. And that she was a friend. And that was a moment where I realized I was in the wrong system. So that was kind of the impetus of going to business school. And then at Harvard Business School, I met Akil Iyer. He's now at Shield Capital. And he told me about Anduril Industries and how all of these venture capitalists were now interested in funding some defense tech ideas. Yeah, Anduril was so exciting, and you could be so high agency as an engineer, talking directly to customers, the founders being at our onboarding. It was so invigorating, and I knew I wanted to be in startups for the rest of my career and make a huge impact. I met my co-founder, and she was co-president of the Space Club with me. And she, at HBS during that time, a lot of people are there to kind of have fun. They were in consulting, they're at Miami every weekend. Anne was always working on something, and so was I. And she just she would call customers. She was doing projects for heat shields for hypersonics on the side. And she was my first phone call when I left another startup to found Stell.
Oh, wow. Okay. So Anduril, actually, let's double click there. What was that experience like? And how big was the company actually at the time? Because now it's huge.
Yeah, so I remember during my onboarding, they told us we were joining at employee 600 and something.
Mm-hmm.
They onboard you in a cohort. It was extremely professional, but fun. You felt like an engineering celebrity. You show up and they had this really cool backpack for you, a computer, and people immediately on your first day start telling you the mission of the company in depth and why you're there, and sharing so much about the business, which, as an engineer at a prime, you're just not informed to that much of the how much the business is operating. So I found that to be so exciting and empowering to actually understand how my work there was going to contribute to the business at large. This summer, the projects are extremely fast paced. I was often on a plane on a military base, just like really direct access to a customer. I was watching like fighter jets take off right in front of me. I was in the field testing hardware pretty much every week. So it was an engineer's dream, honestly. If I wasn't working at Stell, I probably would be trying to rejoin there.
So you decide, you obviously end your first call that you're going to start a business. So tell us more about Stell.
Yeah, so Stell is an engineering documentation tool for hardware engineers. And my vision is that Stell is the platform that hardware engineers log on to ask any question about what they're building, to document all their decisions, almost code for what you want to build in the real world. We're starting with an area that's called requirements management. And that's how you define what a hardware system will be. That's how you, in human language, define what a machine will do, how it should be tested, how it should be fielded. And this area is so interesting because, especially in aerospace and defense, no missile defense system is made in a vacuum. It's made with, government users are operating it. There's stakeholders in government, and then there's multiple system providers providing, launch, satellite interconnectivity, communications, ground systems, and all those things have to talk to each other. And the number of documents and the things that need to fit together for those missions to be successful is just exponentially increasing right now. And so Stell is a place to document those and then communicate them securely with partners.
Tell me how folks are currently managing all this today. Like the Raytheons, you spent time there. So how does it work?
Yeah, so it's a lot of Word documents that become PDFs describing, a satellite system or an electronics test plan that's sent to a supplier or a customer. And so it's a lot of humans having to read documents and translate them into what needs to be built. So it's very slow because of that and mistake prone. And I think that's why you get a lot of delays. And then for just providing, a compliance matrix for a satellite back to DoD, like a lot of Excel sheets. And then that's on one person's computer. Only one engineer can really contribute to it at a time. And it's a snapshot in time. As soon as it's kind of sent over, it's already out of date and it's out of sync. That's kind of state of the art there. There's a tool from 1993 that IBM now owns. It was made in Europe called IBM Doors. Mm-hmm. And this is like the legacy competitor that we're mostly trying to compete with. And it just makes links between those statements about the hardware. So if the customer's mission document says that we need to go out and take images of Europa, Jupiter's moon, an engineer may make a link from that requirement statement to one in their document describing the satellite system of, okay, the satellite needs to have this much fuel to actually transfer from low Earth orbit to Europa. And so that's what they're doing in the tool, is making links. And you can do that really easily on Stell. Unseating them and replacing something that looks like Windows 1995 is kind of our goal right now.
Yeah. So I was really fortunate to meet you, Nan, right as you were starting the company, like pre-revenue, pre-product. And I'll never forget your pitch for the pre-seed, which was like, we're going after new companies, like new aerospace and defense companies, none of the kind of enterprise like legacy players. That quickly transitioned, but largely because you saw the demand, knew you could build for them, and then quickly shifted gears, I think early 2023. This year, it's just been like off to the races, government contracts, grants. Why are you winning these deals? And they're 7 figures. Yeah, how is it navigating the government?
So when we pitched you and we raised our pre-seed, we quickly figured out willingness to pay at startups or other startup software was probably, the ACV was just not going to be high. And we figured out we might end up building something that's not actually solving a problem at scale and for a massive TAM. And our product vision, again, was for those digital engineering documents. And so we went full hard mode with the business, which only recently this summer has fully started to work out and be realized. And I am so glad we made the bet that we did. So we went completely upmarket and we have a dual use strategy. So we're selling into government, Space Force and Air Force. So they're actually defining their missions and the high level system requirements on Stell digitally. We're also selling into the prime contractors, which make up most of the total addressable market within aerospace and defense right now still. And then tier 1s and tier 2s that actually serve those primes, our customers. So our customers today They're building ships in Alabama, electronic systems across the US, satellites in San Francisco. And we have 2 Space Force customers and 1 Air Force customer active on the platform.
And just to double click there. So what is it like navigating these contracts? How long do they take?
They can take a while. I think relative to as a startup founder, I'm often asking what I can get done that day. So navigating enterprise sales was extremely frustrating for me. I also have been an engineer before, so I had to learn sales from zero, really. From a first meeting, usually we have kind of a cold connection, either at a conference or we have these billboards in these micro airports across the country.
Is there one in Birmingham or one in Alabama?
Huntsville, Alabama.
Okay.
And it says, shut the doors on your old requirements management solution. So it's very targeted.
Yeah.
You only know if you know. And if you see it, you feel very seen. And so we actually get a lot of inbound from the billboard. So,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah. And so after that kind of first connection, we're typically mapping the organization, figuring out, are they on Excel or are we pulling them off a competitor? And then we try to find which new exciting program are you working on that needs to go fast, and then scoping getting them on Stell. Usually within, they can go as fast as 1 to 2 months. And then the larger the company, we see closer to 8 months for the enterprise deals.
That's interesting. Okay, great. And then, so you're based here in LA. How big is the team now?
So our team is 13 and we're split across Los Angeles and San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And we're evenly split right now. So if anyone's listening and they want to join, you can join in either office. You get to choose which city you want to live in. We have physical office spaces. We require everyone to come 3 days a week physically to the office. And most of the team is still on engineering and product. On the go-to-market side, we're still doing founder-led sales. And we have one amazing BDR who helps us with business development.
At what point, now that you've proven this model, or I guess like in the future, is the goal to really focus on more of government since you figured out how to do that and that's really hard? Or is it that you're going to staff up the team, transition from founder-led sales, and then try to go after each kind of avenue?
We're going to go after both, and we feel like we can because this industry is so intertwined. Like the DoD, they cannot make these systems without the contractors, and the contractors, their ultimate customer is the DoD. So that for Stell's motion, it does make a lot of sense. We actually have a bit of a product-led growth element because they're sharing securely on Stell and collaborating. We figured out we needed to go government first because we needed to build trust. We needed to build enterprise readiness and cybersecurity. That is the number one thing that will kill a software for hardware company. And if you're making an investment and your founders don't have like a really strong plan for this, like make sure they get on the phone with like the right experts who can help them figure this out. I learned this all the very hard way. The approvals and the readiness go well beyond a SOC 2. Like it's 100 times harder than that. In aerospace and defense, there's something called an authority to operate. We just received ours in August, and that's when we signed an additional like 8 million plus in deals immediately following that inflection point.
And that's really hard to get, right? Or just to get through that process.
It's hard to even get someone to say that you should start the process. And then the process itself, the engineering is extremely complicated. And then the compliance and just having a partner on the government side that can get you through that process quickly. I think we did it in 8 months from having the demand letter. It's like 2 kernel level signatures saying they absolutely must have your product. There's nothing like it on the market. They probably invested close to $1 million on the Space Force side in resources. I imagine they did the audit to get our platform ready. And so I think just the execution, our CTO, Zoe Ingram, she did an incredible job. I think it's unheard of.
Yeah.
Most people, I told them we were directly going to do the engineering and the authority to operate ourselves. And you can see in their eyes, they were like, oh, you're going to die trying to do this. But we knew you can't build a venture scale aerospace and defense software company without this in your DNA. Like it was me and Zoe learning directly, like, what does all this engineering mean? And now we go to any customer call and we speak confidently about our controls and what we've built. And like anyone we hire too, like we know what good looks like. And so that's why like we didn't feel like we could outsource this or put it onto one of these like platforms where you kind of get like an ATO so you ride on someone else's ATO. That didn't feel like the right decision.
Let's talk about the sort of venture capital, like investments in deep tech, like this just crazy, all these tailwinds. And I realize a lot of this is like the new administration But now all of a sudden, everyone's picking their eyes and ears up and saying, we're going to be the new deep tech experts and we're going to invest in defense and all of these different categories. From your seat, are you seeing more? One question is, are you seeing more investors spending time here? And then the other question is, do they actually understand your business or a lot of these businesses? Like, I'll speak for myself. There's areas that we just don't understand. So we shy away, especially from hardware related companies.
I think, first of all, it's so exciting to see investors get interested in this area. Like when I was at HBS in 2020, I was telling people I was working on an aerospace and defense company, and most responses were, is aerospace and defense a big market? And like, it was just so not in vogue. Like, I think the most famous companies that year were like just traditional B2B SaaS, and like a makeup company was getting kind of 90% of the oxygen. And so coming to LA and meeting investors who wanted to invest in this was like just such a breath of fresh air for me. I don't know how VCs evaluate aerospace and defense software or hardware in 30 minutes. I can't imagine someone understanding what I understand after 7 years of working on this in 20 minutes, or usually even less, like 10 minutes of even seeing the glimpse of the product. So I have a lot of respect for especially the early stage deep tech investors. And I think that's why you see investors coming out with their own thesis in different areas around what the world might look like in 10 years, because I think that's the right way to approach what to invest in. Is at a societal level, we're seeing a need for new defense products, new energy products. And so understanding that need is the best way investors can then approach what are good solutions and what are good founders.
Yeah, the landscape has evolved dramatically. Like, I'm seeing more and more from our seat as well, even like software for hardware, just across categories. When you started, we were not in this AI LLM world. And so there wasn't, like, sure, there was a talk track and sure you guys were using it like, where you needed to. But now I feel like everything is AI native and that's the future, and AI agents are going to automate everything. I know you're actively building different things inside of Stell. What is your approach to all of this? And is some of it too much noise? Like, how much of this do you think that AI will you guys build that you think is necessary?
We are taking a full bet on patience. We have not released it yet. So I think our guiding principle is always our customers. And I think for aerospace and defense software, it needs to be extremely accurate, and understanding which workflows could be automated and have 20% mistakes and which could not is really critical. And so we actually have a $1 million contract with the Chief Digital and Artificial Intelligence Office within DoD to pursue this work. And we have our agent working internally, and we're just making sure doing rigorous testing before we actually release it to any of our active customers. But one of our killer features, which made our sales start working about 1 year ago, was we shipped an automated workflow. We used Google's BERT model when it first came out because that's all we could get on AWS GovCloud, and it was the best at interpreting engineering text in particular. And we found that customers, those 200-page specs from NASA on the International Space Station mission, customers were manually typing these into an Excel sheet in 2024. And we met people whose job was 40 hours a week typing these back out so their team could work on them for proposals, engineering reviews. I had done a lot of optical character recognition technology when I was at Hadrian. We used Amazon's TextRact, pretty common, but then we used BERT to actually parse it into the workflow. So the result for aerospace engineers is in 2 minutes, that NASA doc becomes something they can start collaborating on. And we use AI to tag the data so they can navigate the thousands of requirements really quickly. So it's a really simple and kind of obvious use case, but to our customers, it meant the world. And it actually meant they can come onto Stell and start working in 2 minutes. Yeah, that was our first moment where AI actually completely changed our business already a year ago. I think what's exciting about Stell, and requirements management sounds boring, but what Stell is, it's a database of what hardware needs to accomplish and the results of trying to accomplish that. So giving that to a large language model is going to be very powerful. When there's a new missile defense project, we can actually inform risk very early based on a company's own proprietary data. So we'll know test failed in the past on a similar requirement, or a customer left 20 back and forth comments. And so we can actually inform, this might be hard to achieve, or kind of advanced statements on even manufacturing readiness is something we're working with one of our customers on. So it's actually like the AI understanding the intent of these physical systems on Stell.
And then I guess last question for you. So I'm assuming you're hiring for a few key roles. You mentioned already they can choose between LA and SF. What are some key roles you're hiring for in case some amazing folks are interested that are listening?
So we are looking for an amazing DevSecOps engineer for our security and infrastructure team. Again, that is in the core DNA of the company. So if anyone has that expertise and wants to work, on site at a Space Force customer, delivering to aerospace and defense, I think that's an amazing role. A couple of the key hires we're going to be bringing on, a head of government project management. I am looking for someone I can trust, most likely with a military background that understands our customers, to actually ensure they're successful week to week. I'm doing that personally right now. I'm just looking for a partner because I think we're going to scale our government side extremely quickly. So that'll be our next critical hire.
Anything else you want to share? Future outlook of the market, like any future growth plans? Oh yeah, and any customers, how should they reach out to you? What's the best? The website, your email, what would be most useful?
Yeah, probably the website. And I think all of my contact information is there, and it's also on my LinkedIn. Would love to give a demo to any potential customers. I think the only other thing I would share is that I'm super optimistic about software for hardware right now. I think And so that's what I'm excited about. And I think having the cybersecurity baseline and kind of having this product-led growth motion, I think we're about to see a huge boom, not just for Stell, but for all of these companies working on different areas of the workflow. I think investors have been wrong to kind of say that this market is small, because these historical tools from 30 years ago that was made in someone's garage in England isn't, worth $10 billion. I just think no one has taken a crack at this industry in 30 years. So yeah, I'm super excited about proving out the category, honestly, with my company, because I think now Stell is becoming one of the more mature companies in the space.
Yeah, I love it. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Mallory. Everyone reach out to Stell.